Here in Ohio, recreational marijuana became legal just over a month ago, so I thought I'd do a video to celebrate that. Today I'm going to show you a simple recipe to make Cannabutter. That is, of course, a kind of butter that's infused with cannabis, and it does taste like cannabis, so it takes a little getting used to, but you can use it for almost everything that you use butter for. You can spread it on toast, you can put it on pasta, of course it adds a cannabis flavor. You can even use it to make brownies and cookies with. For now, I'm going to show you this very simple recipe, and then afterwards, I'm going to show you how to make cannabis bulletproof coffee, which is actually keto, and something that maybe you keto stoners might like to check out. A very nice beverage for one of those afternoons when you're not going anywhere and you're just going to enjoy a little time at home, a little relaxation. Anyway, tell you what, let's head to the kitchen and I'll show you. Making a small batch of Cannabutter is easy, but takes a little patience. You only need 2 ingredients. Some cannabis flowers. You want to make sure you break up the buds pretty much, but you don't have to grind them or anything. This will be fine like this. And then you'll need some butter. In this case, I want to end up with 4 ounces, that's 1 stick, of Cannabutter. And to do that, since I'm using really cheap store brand butter that I got for like $3 a pound, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons to 1 stick of butter. That's going to be 10 tablespoons of butter. And we're going to cook this down a little bit and make clarified butter out of it. And so we're going to lose some weight with the milk solids and the water content while we do that. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. We're going to start off by cooking the cannabis for a little while in the Instant Pot in order to activate the THC. This process is called decarboxylation, and I'll spare you the scientific details and all of that. I don't really understand them that well myself. But basically what we have to do is cook this at 240 degrees. And like I said, I'm going to do it in the Instant Pot. So I'm going to put it in a mason jar and cover it with a canning lid. This is a reusable canning lid. You can use any kind of mason jar lid with the band. And this is ready to go in the Instant Pot. To prepare the Instant Pot, first of all, we're going to put about 2 inches of warm water in the bottom. I'm just using hot tap water here. And we want the water to come up and actually touch where the bottom of the jar is. So let me let that go for just a second. That's pretty good right there. Place our mason jar in the center and take this over to the Instant Pot. One of the great things about using the Instant Pot for this is that it won't smell up your whole house and the entire neighborhood like if you do it in the oven. And you can decarboxylate this in the oven at 240 degrees, but there's a big smell, so especially if you live in an apartment or something, you may not want to do that. Anyway, we're just going to put this right in the Instant Pot. Keep the mason jar near the center. Put the lid on. Make sure we're locking it in there for pressure cooking. We're going to do it on the meat setting for 40 minutes. Now, let me show you how to make clarified butter. So here in this pan, I've got 5 ounces, that's 10 tablespoons, of butter. This is unsalted butter. You could use salted, I don't think it really matters. But anyway, what we're going to do is melt it down, and then we're going to clarify it by simmering it for probably about 20 minutes to a half an hour. It's fairly easy. You want to do it over a very low flame, partly to keep it from splashing all over the place, and partly because you really don't want to overdo it here and you don't want to burn it. What's going to happen is the milk solids in the butter are going to sink to the bottom of the pan and begin to caramelize, and that's going to give your ghee a really great caramely sort of flavor. Butter. Now here we are about 5 minutes later. You can see it's bubbling away. Now we don't want to turn it down so low that the bubbling stops, and we don't want to have it up too high so that we burn the milk solids that fall to the bottom as they do. After about 15 minutes, it looks like this. You can see that the foam is clearer and not a solid white color. That's because those milk solids are dropping down to the bottom. I'm going to wait another 5 or 10 minutes or so. Very patiently, no big deal, right? We're still waiting for the cannabis to be decarboxylated. Just a few minutes later, the kitchen is really filled up with the aroma of caramel. I'm going to take this off the burner, which I've already turned off, and just let it cool while we wait for the cannabis to finish decarboxylating. There we go. Time's up. And so now what I'm going to do is turn it off and do a quick release of the steam. This will just take a few seconds. Well, all right, a few minutes. Now when the hissing stops, you can remove the lid and remove our jar of decarboxylated cannabis. And now we're going to take this over to the counter to combine it with the ghee. Oh, don't empty the water out of the Instant Pot. We'll use it again in just a moment. Now here I've turned on the scales so I can show you just how much weight we lose with the butter as we go along. Here's our pot. It was 4 grams of pot in a jar. I'm going to tear that out. And next what I'm going to do is simply strain the ghee into the jar with the Cannabutter and combine it. I'm going to use some cheesecloth to strain out the milk solids, and we're just not going to make a big fuss out of it. We're not going to scrape the milk solids off the bottom. You can see they're brown, nicely caramelized. The foam on top, we don't need to skim it at all because it will stay in the cheesecloth. And so what we end up with is some beautifully clarified butter, as I believe you will see. Set that aside. Okay, about 110 grams. That's a loss of 30 grams already. Now next, all we have to do is combine the ghee with the cannabis. Just like that, no big deal. I'm going to put the lid and the band back on, and we're going to take it back over to the Instant Pot. Now it's time to infuse the ghee with the cannabis. So I'm going to put that back in the Instant Pot, put the lid right back on. Make sure we've got it sealed there, not open. And this time, same setting, but for only 30 minutes. That's all there is to it. Now all we have to do is wait. We're still not quite done yet, but the next part is really easy. First, unplug the Instant Pot, and then wait for about 25 to 35 minutes for the pressure to decrease naturally. It's been about 25 minutes now, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be depressurized now. There it is. No hissing, so we know that it's ready to be opened. Just go ahead and do that. And remove the mason jar of Cannabutter. Okay, almost done. This is the next to the last step. Now we're going to strain the cannabis solids out of the Cannabutter. Open the jar. It's still pretty hot. And then we just want to strain out the solids. And I've got a small strainer here with some cheesecloth underneath it in a canning funnel. And I'm going to get all of that out of there, of course. And then squeeze the rest of the butter out of the cannabis. Of course, you could use this now in its liquid form, but I want to shape it into a stick. To do that, I'm going to pour the melted Cannabutter into the well of this butter mold and put it in the refrigerator for at least 3 to 4 hours, if not overnight. And here, at last, the very final step, the unmolding. Wish me luck. And so now I'm just going to get it out. Try to get it out of the mold neatly without breaking it, but I might break it. Ease it right on out of there. Come on, baby. Oh, there we go. I did break it, but doesn't really matter. There we go. There's a nice stick of Cannabutter. You can see it still has a little of the solids in it there. That's all right. We're just going to use it anyway. We're basically just going to use this like we would on anything we use butter in. Right now, I'm going to make myself a Cannabutter Bulletproof coffee, and show you how to do that. It's delicious, and it's great for an afternoon when you're not going to leave the house or drive the car. And so let me show you how we do that. The first thing we need is a good, strong cup of your favorite coffee. You could also do this with hot chocolate. You'll also need some Cannabutter and a high-speed blender of some sort. Here you can see that my stick of Cannabutter is marked with measurements on it. Each one is about a tablespoon. I don't recommend that you use more than a tablespoon. This stuff is pretty potent, and more than 1 tablespoon is a little more than you need. All right, so there's my tablespoon of Cannabutter. Into the blender it goes with the coffee. We're going to make an emulsion here very quickly. All right, and then here's our product. Nice, foamy, looks a little bit like a Frappuccino. It smells like cannabis, of course, though. And here we go. And there's the drink. Hey, listen, thanks so much for watching us here today at Tim Talks Cooking, huh? We'll catch you next time.